The Grand Hall of the Global Culinary Summit in Chicago fell silent. It was May 2018, and the world's most elite chefs had gathered to discuss the future of flavor. Julian Vance sat at the center of the panel, his white chef's coat crisp and custom-made, his 5 Michelin stars represented by a subtle pin on his lapel. At 55 years old, Julian was a titan. He had kitchens in Paris, Tokyo, and London. His palate was considered the most expensive in the world. Beside him sat a French sauce master and a molecular gastronomist from Spain. In the audience sat Mang Tomas, a 52-year-old street food vendor from Quiapo, Manila. He wore a simple, clean white t-shirt and a faded apron. He wasn't there to lecture. He had been invited as part of a global heritage segment to showcase the roots of Asian street flavors. Beside him was a small charcoal grill and a cooler filled with marinated pork, Isaw chicken intestines, and his signature secret vinegar. When the floor opened for questions, Mang Tomas stood up. His voice was humble, translated by a young Filipino student. "Chef Vance," he began, "in the Philippines, we believe the best flavors aren't found in labs, but on the street corners where we use every part of the animal. Do you think there is a place for street soul in the future of fine dining?" The audience waited. Julian Vance leaned back, a smirk crossing his face. With all due respect, Vance began, his English sharp and elitist. "Filipino street food is a sanitary disaster. It is fascinating for a travel vlog, perhaps, but it is not cuisine. Intestines on a stick, vinegar that sits in the sun. These are relics of poverty, not professional gastronomy," he continued, his voice rising with arrogance. "Modern gastronomy demands precision, temperature control, and ingredients that have been refined. What you have in Manila is survival cooking, not art. You can't take garbage parts of a pig, burn them over charcoal, and call it music. It belongs in a history book of how people used to eat, not in a serious kitchen." The room grew cold. Several Filipino culinary students in the back row looked down, faces flushed with shame and anger. But Mang Tomas simply nodded, his calloused hands resting on the chair. He had heard this before from the elite in Manila 6 months past. Julian Vance was opening his newest Asian fusion restaurant in Singapore. He had spent millions on a menu that refined Asian tastes, but the buzz wasn't about him. It was about a pop-up stall in the heart of the Singapore night market that was drawing lines 3 blocks long. The festival director, a woman who had seen the viral video of Vance mocking Mang Tomas, had invited the street vendor to set up right across from Vance's VIP tent. Vance was furious. "This is a high-end festival. Why is there smoke from a charcoal grill drifting into my lobster truffle?" The night of the grand tasting arrived. The world's top food critics were there. Vance served a deconstructed Adobo Foam that cost $150. It was technical, cold, and perfect. Then, it was Mang Tomas's turn. He didn't use foam. He fanned the charcoal, the smell of calamansi, soy sauce, and secret spices filling the air. He served a simple platter, inihanaba and Isaw, served with a vinegar that had been fermented for years. The first critic took a bite, silence, then another. The crunch of the perfectly cleaned and grilled Isaw echoed. The depth of the marinade, which had 40 years of Quiapo history behind it, hit their palates like a freight train. People began to cheer. The standing ovation lasted for 10 minutes as the judges realized that this primitive cooking had more soul than anything Vance had ever touched. Backstage, Julian Vance stood motionless. His foam was melting, untouched. He walked over to Mang Tomas's stall. The crowd parted. He looked at the charcoal grill and the simple man fanning the flames. Vance took a stick of Isaw. He bit into it. The arrogance in his eyes shattered. He realized he had been wrong. He hadn't been listening to the flavor. He had judged the book by its cover. He shook Mang Tomas's hand and, in front of the cameras, apologized. I called this garbage, but the truth is, I was the one who was blind. This isn't survival cooking. This is the foundation of flavor.